take small steps. A lot of the avoiding that goes on is because we have these lofty goals that are so big that we want to achieve, yet we're not breaking them down into smaller steps. For example, it can be a lofty goal to say, hey, I want to grieve the loss of my marriage. Okay. So, and it's not going to be an easy process, but what are some of the steps that I could take to break that down? And I like to well, it could be just meeting new people. It could be just talking to your friends about it finally. It could be that you actually go on a date, hopefully not too quickly, because I wouldn't suggest you get married right away after a divorce, but I would suggest that you do things to heal. It could be going to a support group, but you're going to break it down into smaller steps. So I think, and I truly believe that 15-minute increments are a great way to block out activities that you're avoiding. And you could expand it to 30 minutes if you wanted to, but it's going to be something that's smaller because we can grasp that. Okay, can I make progress in 15 minutes with my health? Absolutely, you can. You can do 15 minutes of running, and that can actually be very significant. You can do 15 minutes of cooking. You can do 15 minutes of just learning how to cook a new recipe. You could do 15 minutes of talking to a friend. You could do 15 minutes of walking, 15 minutes of playing a game with your kids. But you break it down into something smaller so that it's more manageable and not overwhelming. And that helps you to focus on the process, not the destination, because smaller steps show you that you are training, not trying. You're training for something that's much bigger, yet that outcome is not nearly as important as having and finding joy in the journey. And those little small increments that you get crossed off your list are successes on the way to making that big picture progress, which everybody that I've ever met that's been a tremendous success has had some kind of let's do the training. And I know it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take discipline, but I'm willing to, because my purpose in life is only going to be lived out if I get to that, if I take these steps, if I train. Because I'm only going to have the impact I want to have if I do these things that are hard, that are going to get me to the place where I want to be. So, in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's this saying, one day at a time. It's just, you don't have to worry about not drinking for a whole year. You just take one day at a time. And one day is a success. It could be 1 hour at a time if you're in recovery. It could be 1 minute at a time, but you're breaking it down into something smaller. And that's going to help you to see that you can get there over time because you got one day of success. And then if you relapse and start again, you got 1 day of success. And relapse is often part of the healing process, not just some destructive thing that happens that leads you down the spiral of no return. It doesn't have to be, at least. So if you break it down, what's going to happen in your life? I had a woman client that she wanted to change jobs, and very successful, very qualified. And she would come back every 2 weeks, because most of my clients meet with me every 2 weeks, and she would not have followed through. She didn't follow through with what she was going to do. And then she'd beat herself up, something's wrong with me, or there is no excuse, you're going to fire me as a client, and that kind of stuff. And I would tell her and ask her, I'd say, well, what is it that would motivate you here? And what's in the way? What's getting in the way? What kind of thinking is behind this? And then she'd start to think about the situation and everything. And it turns out that there was a number of things. Feeling unworthy to have a better job, despite just being highly qualified and being someone I'd hire, and someone that most of you listeners would probably hire as well, still had that negative self-talk going on. But then we broke it down, and it ended up that we created a list of 20 contacts for her. She created the list of 20 contacts. And then we looked at it over a 2-month period, 60 days, and she would make 20 contacts over 60 days. So you can break that down any way you want, but it could be 1 contact every 3 days. It could be, 5 contacts over the next week. And then once we broke it down to those smaller, manageable steps, she comes back and then she shares with me how she made 5 contacts and actually went and met with 4 of them and had really good conversations. And then those led to other relationships and interactions. And so she was just on fire because she had broken it down. She was able to actually step into that fear and face it and move forward.